Feels like paper.
Yeah, it feels like paper.
And then you just say this document.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fine.
I heard the newer version, the newest, this is a.
You were doubting.
I heard.
You were wondering when it was next.
Oh, really?
So I thought it too.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, because it
I mean,
doesn't have
people
friction,
want
that's
to
right.
It's identical to yours. They're probably identical to those.
Should we go ahead and call this meeting to order? Okay. Well, it is 3:04. I'm gonna call our Santa Cruz Libraries Facilities Financing Authority, the LFFA board meeting to order. Can we start with a roll call?
Board member Legault. Here. Board member Goldstein.
Here.
Board member Hupkirk.
Here,
Board member Coburn. Here.
I am supposed to be sharing this meeting, right?
I think so.
That's a double check every time now. I will jump into it.
If you're complex about what I was thinking, I can go with it.
Okay, we're gonna start off with public comment. This is an opportunity for any member of the community, may address the board during public comment period on any matter. Not included on today's agenda. We have any public comment online?
No.
We don't have any here in person either. I will bring it back to the board. We'll move on to our general business item today, which is a staff recommendation to approve second supplement to amended and restated joint exercise of powers agreement, increasing the maximum distribution to the parties by 30 million in the same percentages as the existing distribution. And over to staff.
Edith Driscoll, your treasurer, I think. Also, I want to introduce online, you see that we have Suzanne Harold, our financial advisor, as well as Scott Ferguson, our bond counsel. And I'll do a brief introduction and then I will ask Scott Ferguson to introduce the document. So, at our last meeting, we made a determination to consider modifying the joint powers agreement that was originally created when we formed a few years ago. Sure, that year is gonna pop out at me any moment. And so the action was to have Scott Ferguson, the bond counsel, go back and rewrite that based on some of the information that was discussed. And we're calling this special meeting now for your board to consider that final document and determine if you want to approve it and go forward. The recommendation would be approve a second supplement to amend and to the amended and restated joint exercise of powers agreement, increasing the maximum distribution to the parties by 30 million in the same percentage as the existing distribution. I also want to call out that the board document has an attachment, even though it isn't specifically footnoted. And I'm going to scroll to the bottom so I can say that the name of that attachment is the bond expenditure plan. This would be the amended bond expenditure plan. And with that, I would like to ask Scott Ferguson if he could review this proposed document.
Yes, I'm happy to. So I'm Scott Ferguson with Jones Call. So in 2018, I think it was 2018, we amended the amended and restated JPA agreement. We've tinkered with this agreement a handful of times since the JPA was originally formed. But the first amended, or I should say the first supplement, did very much what we're talking about doing today. It took, in light of the way the finances and the numbers were working out, it increased the maximum distributions to all the parties by the same percentage. And this second supplement is doing the same thing for the same reasons. The numbers are working out so that more dollars are projected to be available than originally anticipated. So the thought was to increase those maximum amounts, again, keeping the percentages the same. So for anyone that went back and looked at the first supplement, this looks very similar, except that the numbers are different. Adds up to a total maximum distribution of 107 $1,500,000, which is a $30 million increase. I will note that the one wording change that I'm making is in that paragraph that falls just below the table with the numbers in it. Only because looking back on it, it didn't really reflect the way the rest of the agreement worked, which is that distribution will be governed by the bond expenditure plan, which is that plan that Ian just mentioned that's attached as the last document to the staff report. This is the, as originally set up and has come to the board over the years, bond expenditure plan is the plan that describes how bond proceeds, special tax proceeds will be distributed based on the bond issues, the allocation of bond proceeds to the various members based on those bond issues, and then how that results in the changes to the allocation of bond proceeds versus pay as you go special tax proceeds. So, and then the second sentence of this paragraph just reflects that the changes to the amounts require an amendment, a further amendment that has to be approved by all of the members, in other words, board of supervisors and then the 3 city councils. And that's the process that this action today, we're asking the board to approve this amendment in concept and then take it back to each of the 4 constituent governing boards for approval. Since it's the 4 members that need to approve amendments to the joint powers agreement.
Thank you, Scott.
Otherwise, happy to answer questions.
Questions from the board?
I have a question, maybe you'd hear the person to answer this, just the 175,000 balance to Scotts Valley, can you give me the background on that?
It's Suzanne, I was gonna say, let's let Suzanne. And Suzanne, just so you know, we do have Danielle in the office in the audience as well, the actual county does work. Suzanne Harold, our financial advisor.
So nice to see you. So, under the original allocation of 77,500,000, everyone got, a request either to take it as special tax revenue or bond proceeds. So after we issued the bonds for the balance of the city of Santa Cruz share, the city of Scotts Valley still had 175,000 of their original allocation of the 77.5 still outstanding. And so we thought, let's put everybody on the same footing rather than trying to kind of work that into the formula. So let's use the special tax revenue that's surplus after this bond issue and bring Scotts Valley, make sure Scotts Valley got its full share of the 77,500 so that we can kind of a clean slate, makes it easier to administer going forward.
So that's how much we're still waiting in the checking account for Scotts Valley. We're gonna issue it so it can start over at 0.
And because we hadn't requested it, or because?
Correct.
Okay.
Right, Scotts Valley got some money as bond proceeds and the rest was coming in as special tax revenue because you didn't have any use for war bond proceeds, so you were just taking it as pay-go money. So this is kind of what's left of your pay-go under the original allocation.
Scott, I think this is a question for you. So, as I understand it, the action we're being asked to do today is to increase the overall amount, $30 million. And allocating those funds pursuant to the formula. So Capitol will get a couple million more in pay over the years. Santa Cruz has, I think, 12 million outstanding, and they would get about another 12 for a total of 25 million after this action would be the total amount of money. I saw in the staff report it mentioned that there's, maybe Edith or Suzanne, I'm not sure whose work this was, that there's about 11 million more in bond capacity, given timing and coverage ratios and interest rates, everything else. I was under the impression maybe that we weren't deciding what we were gonna do with that 11 million today, but in the expenditure plan, are you proposing what to do with that 11 million?
Well, the bond expenditure plan included, everyone knows that the state of Santa Cruz wanted to utilize any additional bonding capacity as a result of this, increase. And so that is the city of Santa Cruz share of the $11 million, is included in the bond expenditure plan. I haven't heard that any other member wanted to access their share of the $11 million at this time.
Okay, so what we see in that, we see the sort of the three columns to the left is, I don't know how much Santa Cruz. How much of yes, okay, so how much of the $11 million Santa Cruz gets, maybe it's 40%? So that's basically,
It's about 40%, it's about $4.4 million.
so what this is showing is a $12 million issuance which is the 2025 bonds, which Santa Cruz, sorry. Yeah, $12 million issuance for the 2025 bonds, which was Santa Cruz was planning on doing before today. Plus the issuance of about 40% of 13 million, that's about, I don't know, 6
Right,
million.
it's gonna be about 4.4 million in net proceeds for the increased allocation. And the city of Santa Cruz will get the original 12,900,000 from the original allocation. So the two together.
So then we're
I have to
reserving,
kind of separate them to put everybody on equal footing. So the first column 3, where it says 2025 bonds, that's the original allocation. So that raises the 12,900,000 for the city of Santa Cruz. And then we have surplus taxes, and then everybody gets a share of that. And then you can see the final second to last column where it's 2025 debt service for Santa Cruz. That's their share of debt service on the 4.4 million of new bonds being issued. So Santa Cruz still gets some PAYGO money.
okay, and so where does this document go? Is it something that we can amend at any time? Is it something that's getting approved by all the jurisdictions? Is it attached to the JPA?
When you say this document, Suzanne, I've pulled up the.
Sure.
The bond
They're
expenditure,
looking at the bond expenditure. When you say this document, do you mean the bond expenditure or do you mean the whole?
the bond expenditure.
Suzanne, does the bond expenditure plan and Scott continue to remain attached to this item that is gonna go to each agency or is not?
It doesn't need to go to each agency, it could be, conveyed to them as an informational item. But the way it's designed is that the bond expenditure plan is originally approved and then updated over time by this board. And only changes to the JPA agreement itself, in other words, what we're doing in this second supplement, to increase the allocations, that's what needs to be approved by the 4 member agencies.
Yeah, you may remember when the CFP was originally formed, there was a bond expenditure plan. We had, everybody thought like, here's when we want to have our bonds issued, here's how much money we need from each series, and we had a bond expenditure plan. And then after the 2017 bonds were issued in 2020, you did your next series. And then actually, we amended the bond expenditure plan for kind of updated information, because at that time, the city of Santa Cruz didn't need their bond proceeds yet. And it was originally going to be just 2 series of bonds in the first expenditure line. So it's been updated a couple of times now. We're updating it again for what's happening today. Just kind of a roadmap for administration.
So to Jamie, your point, it sounds like we can change and update it. Like if, for instance, if someone wanted to forego PAYGO and give Santa Cruz more, through some sort of process, we could choose to do that.
Yeah, not with foregoing takeover, but foregoing debt capacity.
Right.
Yeah, that's helpful clarity, and we can do so at the board level without having to have each of our councils and elected bodies approve it as they do with the agreement itself.
Correct.
So nice to have that flexibility.
One more question, I guess. When would it be like ridiculous for this board to issue new debt? If we do the 2025 issue, does 2028, 2030 at some point,
Yeah, I would say 5 years. You move from the 11 million, I think I ran it out, after 5 years, you're kind of down to 7 million. And then 5 years later, you're down to like 4 million, so.
Cost of issuance doesn't make sense at some point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of seems like something we should look at.
Yeah, I think that probably merits some additional discussion offline, perhaps by a subcommittee of the board, kind of mapping out
Yeah,
what those options might be. Given that the cost of issuance at some point, will make sense, so.
yeah, I mean, not to put all my cards on the table, I don't see capital needing bond capacity in the next 5 years from. You know,
Yeah,
I'm always one to advocate for my little city, but. You know, I don't see us needing, with the PAYGO, with the library fund availability. We have a new library. Especially seeing the diminishing return, though, it's 5 years from now, the 11 million, you say it goes to 7 or 6, it decreases pretty significantly in the cost of issuance, at some point, would just make it not make any sense.
So again, the city of Santa Cruz's capacity is based on their share of the maximum capacity to issue today. Right, so that means there's a coverage ratio and that sort of thing, so what I'm hearing is maybe you wanna use your PAYGO amount as coverage for the city of Santa Cruz, so they could issue more and forego your ability to issue.
Yeah, I think
So
that's,
everybody get the same amount of money, they would just get less PAYGO and more proceeds. It wouldn't affect you because you're not gonna issue any more bonds.
right,
You'd still get your PAYGO, but we'd be effectively utilizing that as coverage.
yeah, I mean.
That was the concept. and-
That's the concept,
right.
Yeah.
Today, we're growing the total pie, right?
Yeah,
We understand how the allocations work across all of what we're entitled to for each of our agencies, and then I guess the question becomes, if there is an appetite for what you're describing, Jamie, we would have discretion at the board level to potentially bring something back.
yeah,
Capital to decide, we're good for the next 5 years. If you want additional, incremental expanded capacity, there's an opportunity for that outside of what our formula might be.
sure,
The board has that discretion. Which we would be interested in talking about, of course, so.
yeah, it seems like it's probably in the interest of city centers.
For sure, yeah. Not before the board today, but,
Yeah.
good discussion, yeah. Okay, any other, questions or comments from the board? Do we take public comment on this separately? We'll go out for public comment on item 3. Do we have anyone online? No one online, no one in person, bringing it back to the board, and I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move the recommended action.
Okay, so we're approving it, or are we recommending it for adoption by the legislative bodies of the jurisdictions? Or do we need to approve it?
Here's the
The
recommendation.
latter, yeah, it doesn't hurt to approve it.
Okay. All right, well, second. Or did you already?
Okay, we have a first and a second, do we need a roll call vote, or everyone in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So moved. All right, moving on to our next item, scheduled upcoming meetings. I'll just note that it's, our next meeting is in Scotts Valley on May 1st at 9 AM. I think that concludes our business today. Thank you, everyone. I know this was a bit of a rush. We appreciate, everyone hustling to get that.
But I have the follow-up question.